Okay, hey Thrivers, welcome to my channel here at Blondie Clayton. And I just wanted to say to you that if you like anything that I've been sharing, and I appreciate if you would share it or like it, and even subscribe if you feel that you want to do that to help me to get the word out to others, to bring them hope, and those who've been going through and maybe have gone through abuse. Okay. All right. Let's see. Where do I want to start today? I think I'm going to be sharing with you from my book, which is Abuse, the Results, the Plan, and the Victory. So I'll be sharing from that. And also, let's see, just want to share with you, sometimes I get asked by people, how do you start writing your life story? Well, it starts with just getting it down on paper, and as you can see here, through this manuscript. And then what you do is, once you've gotten it all down, and I understand something, memories can be very painful. So there are times when I kind of wanted to just take the manuscript, throw it out the window, burn it, or do whatever, because it was just so painful to deal with. But you get through it. And I learned something very important during that time. I learned how to lean upon God and to just pray that I could get through it, ask Him to help me to get through it, because you can't always get through things without doing something extra. And that was what I learned to do in the process. And another thing, when you're writing things that are painful and things sometimes that may create problems in the family, like I did, you think about your family. You think, well, I'm saying this, but I don't know. I'm writing this, but my family, I'm afraid that they might be angry with me, not like that I'll be outcast. You feel already like you're an outcast, but you feel like you're going to be outcast. And I felt a lot of that. And when I wrote the book, after the book was finished, I experienced some feedback, and negative feedback from some, and some positive from others. But they didn't know, they didn't understand that I was on an assignment for God. That God had given me the directions to write it, and I didn't know really what was going to happen with it. But it just so happened that my family were exposed to it, and many of them bought the book, and then that's when the fallout started. And so, but you got to do what you got to do. And in my case, I knew that I had to do what God directed me to do. It wasn't to be vindictive to my family or anything like that. And although many of their names were changed to protect their true identities, but those that read it knew who they were, and some other people from the outside or outside of the immediate group knew who they were too. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to read a couple of pages from the book, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on. And so here it is. The voice. Aunt Viola liked to play house with you. You didn't like it because she always wanted you to play the daddy, the man. I couldn't object because she was bigger than I, so I let her have her way with me. Silently in my mind, I would tell her, I'm not, oh, got the wrong page. Or do I have the wrong page? Okay, let me back up. All right, so that'll be for the next one. The voice. Why do people have to die and good people have to die and bad people live? That is what you were thinking. You're right. I was thinking that at the time. Maggie's death didn't bring my parents back together. My father came for the funeral, left us with his father, and went on his way. I wondered how Daddy could leave us again. He never asked how things were going. I could have told him some things had he taken the time or cared to know. He didn't care. His life and happiness was all that mattered. With Grandpa Johnson's physical limitation, I assumed the role to the other mother to the other three kids. No one asked me. I was the oldest. I was okay with that until Grandpa Johnson insisted I sleep with him at night. At first I thought he misses her. I was uncomfortable, but I dismissed it. His behavior was confusion, but I dared not question him. I have no memory of when I started to school or any early learning experience. I do remember my first encourager. Her name was Miss Helen. She was an elementary school piano teacher. She was the first person who praised me. I'm not sure how I ended up taking piano lessons. My mother's sisters were into singing and piano, so I guess I took the interest from them. I have never forgotten Miss Helen's words. She said, "Blondie, you are improving. If you work a little harder at this, you could get good at it." I bottled those words. I hung on to them because no one had ever told me if I worked at something I could succeed. What prompted Grandma Ethel to feel that Grandpa Johnson couldn't take care of 4 children alone, especially 3 girls, I don't know. But Grandma Ethel came and took us to live with her. She felt girls needed to have a woman around. I resented her. I felt secure with Grandpa Johnson. I was too young to do anything about the move or to have any say-so. I didn't want to go with her. I wanted my mom and dad. We had been sheltered from my mother's parents. My first reaction was to dislike her. She seemed a bit rough, cold, and hateful. Ethel and Jessie had 12 children. My mother was the oldest girl. There were 4 left at home. I left Grandpa Johnson's house not trusting adults. By this time I had formed the opinion that little children had no decision in what happened to them. I fought adjusting to her house. I longed to be back with Grandpa Johnson. I worried about him. Grandma Ethel showed her bitterness toward me. She treated me as if I had done something wrong. She reinforced it with words like, "You are never going to amount to anything but a house full of children and no man around to take care of them." She associated my looking like my father to not being good. According to her, that look-alike was enough to doom me to failure in life. The bad feelings of the past returned. I wanted to take a break from this writing. I prayed silently that God would help me get through these feelings. A promise was a promise. I had to continue. Living with Grandma Ethel was an adjustment because 4 of her kids were still at home. We didn't bring a lot of things except our clothes. The few we had became community property. We shared beds and sometimes underwear with the others. And so I was thinking about what to call this part that I just read to you. And I think I'm going to call it replay right thoughts and dismiss the wrong thoughts. Because that's what happens in life. You can linger on wrong thoughts, or you can dismiss wrong thoughts and only think about linger on the right thoughts and dismiss the wrong thoughts. And my expectations, I really was looking forward to my parents getting back together, but it was not going to happen. In this dialogue that you hear with me, you can sense that I'm concerned about my father not really trying to find out what's going on, that he was willing to come in, attend the funeral, and then just go on about his business. And this is what happens with children in divorce situations and children who are in an abuse situation. They have a lot of thoughts flowing through their head. And here's another thing. My grandfather is now stepping it up a bit. He now has invited me to be in, well, it's not an invitation, it's telling you that you're now going to sleep with me. And so here I'm thinking, and I'm willing to sacrifice so that he could be comforted. So my thoughts were, he misses her. And so this is what was going through my mind at the time. And so you learn in situations like that, there's nothing I could do about it. I could not say, "I'm not sleeping in your bed because I'm afraid of what you are going to do." I had to submit to what he was telling me to do. He's the adult, I'm the child. And so when you get in that situation, you begin to recognize while you're in that situation that there are some compromises that end up having to happen. There is some humbling of oneself that ends up having to happen. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, this is not going to be forever. It's even though I felt kind of hopeless in a sense, or helpless, yet somewhere there was this little glimmer of hope that I can get through this. I don't care how bad it looks. I believe I can get through it. And then God would send, as he would have it, he would send angels like Miss Helen to encourage me. And Miss Helen never knew how much those words were a part of my life, that was something that she gave me, a treasure that I could hold on to, that I could do something, because here I was feeling helpless as a child, but she helped me to thrive, to know that, hey, I could do something. If I apply myself in any situation that I'm in, that even in spite of what's going on with me, I could still make it through. And this is what, when I think about this, this is what happens to children when they are at the mercy of adults. Adults just usurp their authority over them, and they don't really have a say-so. But what I learned is that when you're in the fire, you can focus on being burned, or you can focus on finding a way to survive. And so my way of surviving was I decided to take piano, and then in taking the piano, this woman speaks these words into my life, which gives me life and gives me hope. And so therefore, that is what I learned to hold on to, and I held on to. And this is the part of my life that often reminds me of Matthew 8, the leper, and the man who had leprosy. And when I think about that story, I think how I too felt like an outcast, and yet pressing forward, but feeling like an outcast. And I wanted to come back in. I wanted to be in the fold, in the family. I wanted to have a family. And the leper, he had to risk some things in order to get to Jesus. And so he decided that it's worth me risking my life in order that I can get my healing. And in spite of the crowds, he pushed through the crowds. He got to where he needed to get to, and he ended up getting his healing. But oftentimes, what happens is, his fear was, if people recognized that he was a leper, he could have lost his life. And so sometimes when we're in situations, we have to work with what we have. And there's this determination that rose up in this leper, and you have to have that determination. Here I was feeling like a leper, and yet I had to have the determination to keep going no matter what it looked like. In my mind, I had to set in my mind that this is not the end, that I can get through this, that I must have the right thoughts in my mind, and I cannot have the wrong thoughts in my mind. If I think that I'm doomed, then I'm going to be doomed. And so I had to adjust my thinking. And I just want you to know that you may have been in a situation similar to mine, and you have felt doomed, and you've been dealing with all of these different little strings that have these attachments, these complications that have come as a result of having been in that spot of abuse or whatever you've been challenged with in your life. And I just want to say to you that you are not alone, and that you have made it, because what you've come through already is already the principles for survival. And there's more that you can do, and you just keep going and never give up, because God has heard your cry just like he heard my cry. I desired to be fixed. I wanted something to change in my life. Now, every situation has not been fixed in my life, because I'm still a work in progress, because I'm still releasing and saying, no, I'm going to swap that out for what God says and who he says that I am, not what I've been exposed to. I am not my circumstances. And I have this saying that your value and your purpose is not determined by your circumstances, but by God. And that I've carried that with me for a very long time. So why do we resent our past? We resent our past because we don't really understand that your past is important in who you have become, and your past have given you great lessons to work with, and has made you. It has either made you bitter or better, but there is some good that have come out of that. When I look back on my life, in spite of all that has happened, there's still, I can see that I had a purpose, and that part of that purpose is me sitting here talking with you. And so here's a thought, and this was from the first video. Who has slithered in to your life? Well, you got to look at your life. Oh, I look at my life, and I said, okay, so the serpent slithered in sneakily And his whole purpose was to kill, steal, and destroy, to disconnect me from God, to get me moving in a direction away from God, to never allow the connection to happen in my life. And so now he could now take me down. And think about it. Some of you have probably experienced that he got out, he slithered into your life, you fed into whatever it was that he had to say to you, and it took you down. I have been taken down. I had been taken down, but you know, I'm no longer down. I'm now up, because now I recognize that my life did have purpose, and that God has a purpose for me. And that purpose, he could not steal that. Even like with the story I told you in the first video about Adam and Eve, said how he slithered in trying to steal their purpose, but he did not steal their purpose. They were still able to fulfill their purpose. And you have a purpose. And God has a plan for your life as well. And, you know, are you really in control? This is something that I've had to ask myself as I look back. You know, I thought I was in control of a lot of things because I thought God had left me. I thought that I wasn't worth anything. I thought all the negative for a moment. And, you know, during periods of time, sporadically, I thought that. But I tried to keep myself more or less thinking that this is not the end. There's more to this than what I am experiencing right now. And I just could not see myself staying in that hole. But I saw myself digging my way out of that hole so that I could be able to really live the kind of life that God had purposed for me. And I want you to know that he's still working on my life, and he's bringing you closer, me closer to him. And I just believe that by your stopping by, that he's bringing you closer. And I just, if anything that I've said to you, if you feel like, wow, I like what she's saying, and I'm going to share this with someone, then like it and share it, and then, you know, go ahead and subscribe if you like. And because I want to get this message out, and you can help me to get this message out. If you think that I'm presenting a side to this whole abuse issue that could bring some, that has shed some light, that could bring some light into your life, then certainly by all means I invite you to share. With that being said, I want you to remember this: replay right thoughts and dismiss the wrong thoughts. Keep the faith. Coach Blondie signing off.